Where did the secret get it wrong? And what could we do to make the law of attraction work every time we need it to, which for most of us is quite a lot? Get ready for some eye-opening revelations about this world-famous phenomenon and some pretty shocking truths about the law of attraction itself. My purpose in making this video is not to debunk a very popular book. It's to inspire you to renewed understanding that the manifestation of all you desire in life is indeed within your grasp. And if it hasn't materialized when you've tried applying the ideas in The Secret, that's more than likely because if you take The Secret at face value, it's going to lead to some serious misunderstandings. Whilst I'm sure that was never intentional, I know there were and are some very disappointed and frustrated people left in its wake. It's time to set that straight. Hi, I'm Trevor, and in case you haven't come across my channel before, I'm the ex-psychotherapist who desperately wanted the law of attraction to fix my life about 30 years ago because it seemed to have fallen apart. I had a broken marriage, I was eyeball deep in debt, and my self-esteem was in my boots. These days, I write books and courses to help people like you discover a non-woo-woo approach to manifesting the life of your dreams, and I'm the founder of the Law of Attraction Demystified Club. There's a link at the top of the description if you'd like to know more about my club. The mess I found myself in happened long before The Secret, which came out in 2006 as a DVD and 2007 in book form. In a nutshell, it claims that positive thinking, along with techniques like visualization, can bring about life-changing results and manifest your deepest desires. That's mouth-wateringly tempting, especially when your life's in a mess. The Secret certainly had and still has its supporters, but it's also faced its fair share of criticism. Many skeptics argue that its logic is deeply flawed and that there's no solid evidence to support its claims. Let's apply some critical thinking to some of the main pillars of its ideas and see if we can winkle out not only the truth, but also get to the bottom of what really does and will always work. Using critical thinking, we can not only dismantle some of the lofty claims made in The Secret, but we can also question assumptions, and with any luck, find the grain of truth that lies inside, a bit like shucking oysters to find a few pearls. In part one of this critique, I'll explore some areas of The Secret which have been misunderstood and how to shift those perceptions so that manifesting becomes easier. And in part two, which will be for members of the Law of Attraction Demystified Club, I'll go into the nature of reality itself to deepen your understanding of manifesting and your true power. There's a link at the top of the description if you're interested to know more about the club and how you can join. Let's begin. A major area behind the law of attraction teachings in The Secret is that like attracts like. Any school child who's ever played with magnets knows that this does not hold true. It's opposites that attract in that instance. On the other hand, if you make a tuning fork ring the note of A in the neighborhood of a well-tuned violin, the A string will begin to vibrate in sympathy because it's on the same wavelength. There's no attraction as such going on, but it's easy to see how, if the metaphor is extended to emotions, someone who is in tune with you in some way is far easier to like or perhaps even fall in love with than someone whose behavior, views and personality differs greatly from yours. We could therefore put forward the idea that liking attracts being liked in return, but most of us don't have a great deal of control over whether we instinctively like someone. Not liking your circumstances is, on the other hand, a different thing altogether. I've discovered this to be a very useful signal, but The Secret suggests something quite different. Suppose you take the milk out of the fridge, but before you pour a drop on your morning cereal, your nose tells you it's off. You were just saved from spoiling your breakfast. I've found that we have emotional signals that let us know when we're about to take a wrong turn or make a bad decision too. Paying attention to those is part of our guidance system. In part 2 of this video, we'll explore that guidance system in more detail because it will also tell you how to manifest anything you truly desire. I'll post that video along with this one in the Law of Attraction Demystified Club members area. For now, let's apply our critical thinking to concept number 2, which is, you must avoid all negative thoughts to achieve and manifest your desires. The idea here is that negative thoughts somehow block, prevent, or at least discourage the universe from producing what you want. Whilst there isn't a shred of scientific evidence that I'm aware of to support that idea, there may be a grain of truth if we examine it from a psychological perspective. For the premise to be literally true, the universe would have to be some kind of judgmental being who withholds badly needed changes if you think the wrong thoughts. This is reminiscent of the biblical God of the Old Testament who could become very angry if you didn't follow his rules to the letter and who could dish out some pretty nasty punishments. I don't believe that for a second. However, we do know that if you think negative thoughts repeatedly, you will start to feel defeated, even depressed. That isn't the universe withholding anything, though. That's you listening to your thinking as if the voice in your head was telling you the truth. We tend to base our beliefs on a number of things, including, but not limited to, past experiences. So telling yourself something like, "Oh, good things like that never happened to me," can feel true because, perhaps, such a good thing has never happened to you. Yet. Although, of course, millions of good things happen to everybody all the time, and it's easy to focus on the negatives when something you badly want isn't materializing for you. The fact is, we experience two kinds of thought. There's what we call conditioned thought, and then there's original thought. Conditioned thought is all our habits and routines, which are great. You don't want to have to relearn how to cross a road safely every time you're on the curb. However, when you try to solve a problem or make the right decision when all options have their pros and cons, thinking about it won't help because you'll go round and round the same circles. That's when you need to let go of conditioned thought and allow original thinking to come through. Which brings us to our next concept from The Secret, which is an attitude of gratitude ensures more good things come to you. There's a subtle distinction to be made here. Of course, being grateful will improve your mental well-being and outlook, but it won't directly influence external events. However, I'd like to recount a story I've heard Dr. Joe Vitale, who was in The Secret, tell, although I'm pretty sure he didn't recount it in The Secret itself. As a very young man, Joe found himself jobless and homeless in a town he didn't know. He ended up sleeping on the streets and spent most of his days in the library where he read a lot of self-help books. Many of those books taught lessons about gratitude. One day, Joe was in a particularly low state of mind and found himself sitting on the curb, contemplating his bleak future, and even had thoughts of ending his life. It was at this point that he spotted a yellow pencil lying in the gutter. Picking it up, he examined it, and he remembered the advice from all the books. He was supposed to feel grateful for this pencil. At first, he was dismissive. It was only a stupid pencil. Then it struck him that he could write anything with it. And since Joe had aspirations of being a writer, it occurred to him that he could potentially write a great novel with it. Looking more closely at the pencil, he observed the eraser at the other end of it and realized that he could erase the suicide note and, should he write the novel, any mistakes could easily be corrected in the same way. Suddenly he saw the pencil as a kind of miracle, and if I remember his telling of the story correctly, he began to cry. Such was the intensity of the gratitude he felt. I love that story, but let's apply our critical thinking to it too. Although Joe Vitale did go on to become a well-paid writer, and perhaps the pencil was a sign from the universe, we know that he didn't write a great novel, and certainly not with the pencil and not at that time. What it does show very clearly is that we're only ever one thought away from a life-changing moment, however. He had a paradigm shift caused by a thought, and that changed his life, and perhaps even saved his life. I'll talk in more depth about paradigm-shifting thoughts in the Nature of Reality video in the Law of Attraction Demystified Club video. Again, the link for all details is in the description. For our purposes of looking at The Secret and the Law of Attraction through a critical thinking lens, I'd propose that we really can't say if Joe manifested the pencil. Scientifically, there would be no grounds to suggest that. But the way I hear that story is that he'd reached the point of surrender, and that was instrumental in allowing the life-changing thought to rise to his consciousness. And by the way, I'm not saying that you need to get to the point of considering ending your life to have such thoughts. There are much less dramatic ways of surrendering. Had Joe continued to listen to and believe his thoughts that his life was as good as over, he might not have lived to tell that or any other tale. Remembering to be grateful for the pencil certainly sparked another train of thought, which made him feel better. I don't think Joe tells us what he did next, but he clearly didn't write a suicide note. I'd like to conclude by saying that an attitude of gratitude certainly makes it far more likely that you'll notice new ideas and have new thoughts about what's possible, and that moving your thinking away from what seems impossible is always going to be a good thing for your mental well-being at least. But it's not a way of guaranteeing that the universe will dispense good things in your direction purely on the basis that you remembered to say thank you. My purpose in making this video is not, as I said right at the start, to debunk a very popular book. By taking a critical look at some of its teachings, hopefully your power to manifest, which is a natural ability in all of us, will become something you can use to reshape your life the way you want it, finally. I hope this has been helpful. Thank you for watching, and I'll see you very soon in another video.